What's going on, everybody? It's time to rank my personal top 10 favorite horror films from the year 1981. I'm going to give you 5 honorable mentions at some point, and I'm going to give you 5 dishonorable mentions, movies that I did not like. And if some of these movies you think came out in 1982 or 1980, don't waste my time in the comment sections complaining about it. Just who cares? I went off of IMDb, so if it came out a year before or after, who cares? All right. So yeah, I watched over 50 movies this month from the year 1981, whereas in 1980, last month when I ranked those movies, I had only seen 33 or so. So I watched more this month because I really wanted to find a hidden gem, a movie that I had never seen before. And only like 18 of the 50 plus were, second time viewings or more that I had seen before. A lot of these movies were first time viewings. So yeah, let's just get right into it. This is my personal opinion, by the way. All right, don't get upset if you don't see your favorite movie on this list. All right, so yeah, let's get into the bad. Let's get all the negative shit out of the way. If you don't want to listen to me rant, then just skip forward a few minutes and get to the actual top 10. So, top 5 dishonorable mentions. The worst movie I watched this month, and it has to do with the fact that I couldn't even see what the fuck I was watching, is Home Sweet Home. This was the worst movie I watched this month. It had a good score, I'll give it that, but until like the last act, then the score just sounded awful. This movie is about a serial killer around Thanksgiving, and he's really buff. He's got a very odd laugh. There's a guy dressed as a mime, and he's like juggling shit, doing magic tricks, and he's got an electric guitar and an amp like duct taped to his back. He's cock blocking people. It seems like a fun, silly movie, but I could only see half of the damn movie. It's on YouTube for free. And, someone uploaded it. It's not like YouTube's providing it. Someone uploaded it on YouTube. There's no Blu-ray release that I know of. I couldn't find it anywhere. It was a very, very shitty quality, and it was just very, very boring. So, yeah, just no gore either. I don't think there was no gore, no creative kills, so it's just a very lackluster slasher. Next up is a movie called Don't Go in the Woods. Not a fan of this movie. This movie felt like it was never going to end. It was just repetitive kill after kill with no setup. It would just cut to somebody dying. Literally. Like, it would just cut to a whole different random group of people, and they're being hacked and thrown off cliffs. And I was like, who's that person? It's very awful in the editing department. Just absolutely bad framing and horrid dialogue. Just no characters to latch onto or care about. The movie just overstayed its welcome. I was bored to tears watching this one. There's no nudity. There's really no gore. The only thing that made me laugh was a guy in a wheelchair getting decapitated and then pushed off a cliff. But outside of that, nothing else from this film will I remember ever. So don't check it out. It's maybe with a group of friends, drunk. I think it's one of those type of films. But don't go in the woods. Not a good movie. Next is a sci-fi horror movie that was written in 4 days, and that's Inseminoid. This movie is just poorly directed and has awful writing. There's literally a guy that is like trying to motivate this chick to get up, and she's like, I can't. And he's like, can't is a word that I don't understand. You can't give up. And then, like, a few seconds later, he's like, sorry, I can't help you. It's like, you just said can't's a word you don't understand. You don't believe in can't. And now you're telling this woman that you can't help her. It was hysterical. And there's, like, this alien creature that's in the movie for, like, 3 seconds. And then it's just about this chick who's, I guess, pregnant with these other, like, alien babies in her. And she's, like, got all this superhuman strength now. She's taken out all her colleagues on this, like, planet, I guess. It's just a very poorly put together film. It was written very quickly. You can clearly tell when you're watching the movie. The last few minutes of this film are unnecessary. It's a movie that doesn't know how to end. And there's some very pathetic fight choreography and no memorable kills. And just, again, not a good movie. And that's why it's in my 5 dishonorable mentions. Next up is a movie from the writer and director of Troll 2, and that is The Other Hell. This is a movie about a killer nun, I guess. And yeah, just another boring film. You got the SWAT guy from Hell of the Living Dead. It's got music from Goblin, but unfortunately it's not very well edited into the film. They just have this music on loop throughout most of it. And you get to see an actual chicken get beheaded in the film. But yeah, there's no intrigue and no thrills here. It's not entertaining at all. It's boring as hell. The Other Hell. It's as boring as The Other Hell. And yeah, there's like a generic looking evil scientist laboratory inside this church for some reason. And I can't tell you much more about it. It's just not a good film. Oh, but there was a scene where a newborn baby gets thrown into a pot of boiling water. That was insane. Next up is an Italian flick called Murder Obsession. Again, boring as hell, but it does have some good like gothic horror atmosphere. I like this setting, the big mansion lit by candles, just the look of the place that they're at. It's about an actor who he thinks he killed his dad as a kid and now he's like playing a serial killer in a movie. Why would you hire a guy with that history to play a serial killer in your film? Doesn't make sense. But it's extremely dialogue heavy and not interesting. The twist I kind of saw coming and it's a stupid twist. And there's the worst fake head I've ever seen. This guy gets hit in the face with an axe, and for some reason the dummy head had no eyeballs and it looked just like the puppet from Team America. I shit you not. Do a side by side comparison and you'll swear you're seeing the same image. And yeah, just nothing else good about this movie. The best part of it was the dream sequence, and that's pretty sad. Now let's go into a little segment I call my participation trophy giveaway, where I list up to 10 movies that I enjoyed but just weren't good enough to make it into my top 10 or into my 5 honorable mentions, the movies that just barely missed the mark. So let's go over 10 movies very quickly. I'll just give you a quick plot synopsis about them and move on. First up is Madman. At a summer camp in the woods, one of the counselors decides to tell a frightening tale of a local serial killer named Madman Mars who slaughtered his family in their sleep. Within moments, Madman Mars is back again for blood. The Prowler, directed by Joseph Zito, an unknown killer wearing World War II U.S. Army fatigue, stalks a small New Jersey town and focuses on a group of college kids holding an annual graduation dance. The Incubus, a small town doctor and sheriff join forces to track down a vicious sex killer who may be the indestructible incarnation of a demon spawned from hell. Deadly Blessing, directed by Wes Craven. After her husband dies under mysterious circumstances, a widow becomes increasingly paranoid of the neighboring religious community that may or may not have diabolical plans for her. Bloody Birthday. As their 10th birthday approaches, 3 children born prematurely during a complete solar eclipse turn murderous and go on a killing spree. David Cronenberg's Scanners. There are men and women known as scanners born with incredible telepathic and telekinetic powers. There are many who exercise the benefits of their special gifts in a safe and judicious manner. However, there is a group of renegade scanners who plan to create a race that will rule the world and blow your mind. Lucio Foshis' house by the cemetery. A New England home is terrorized by a series of murders unbeknownst to the guest that a gruesome secret is hiding in the basement. Happy Birthday to Me. At the snobby Crawford Academy, Virginia's group of friends start to go missing years after horrible events that happened to her as a child around her birthday. An American Werewolf in London. 2 American college students are backpacking through Britain when a large wolf attacks them. David survives with a bite, but Jack is brutally killed. As David heals in the hospital, he's plagued by violent nightmares of his mutilated friend who warns David that he is becoming a werewolf and must commit suicide to end the curse. And lastly, Strange Behavior, aka Dead Kids. A scientist is experimenting with teenagers and turning them into murderers, one of the kids being the son of a local police chief who must stop them before it's too late. Those are my 10 participation trophies. Now let's get into my actual top 10. My top 10 personal favorite from the year 1981. So let's jump all the way to number 10, shall we? Number 10. My list is not going to look like your list. Your favorite's probably going to be very low, but whatever. Like I said, it's my opinion. Number 10 is The Burning. At summer camp, some teenagers pull a prank on the camp's caretaker, Cropsey, but the joke goes terribly wrong when Cropsey is accidentally set on fire. A few years later, the burned and disfigured caretaker returns to camp equipped with his trusty shears, ready to unleash his particular brand of vengeance on a whole new group of teens. And this has Jason Alexander and Holly Hunter, and, we get this 80s stylish score. It's very giallo, like with the whole like shiny weapon, the black gloves in the beginning. Like in the beginning, it feels like a giallo, like kind of, not really, but just it has some elements there. And I wish they would have kept that look throughout the whole like coat he was wearing and keeping his face in the shadows a bit more, showing more Cropsey throughout. The things I love about this movie, of course, is the look of Cropsy. I think he's unique looking and terrifying. Like I said, I like the score. I like how Italian it sounds. And we got Tom Savini effects. We got some very mean-spirited, brutal kills. Some likable characters, memorable characters. Some of them are, pushy and pervy, but I like them. They're memorable. These feel like real kids in this camp setting. The atmosphere of it, it feels like a real camp, and you don't really get that a lot in these camp slashers. It's usually just counselors, but in this movie, it actually is like sleepaway camp, and you actually get to see a whole bunch of people. The body count should have been way higher. The third act is where this movie falls apart for me. It's very lackluster to me. There's too many people who survive. A lot of the movie takes place during the day. We get this final boy chase that goes on forever, and yeah, it's very poorly edited. I mean, let's be honest, it's not the best put together film. So, but it's very rewatchable, and it's a good slasher. So, The Burning is my number 10, and shout out to Redskin fan and Nate Malice, who said that this was their favorite from 1981. Number 9 is a movie I saw for the first time, and that is Dead and Buried. Set in the small coastal town where, after a series of gory murders committed by mobs of townspeople against visiting tourists, the corpses begin to come back to life. This is written by Dan O'Bannon, and this is from the director of Poltergeist 3, and this has Robert Englund and Christopher Allport, the guy from Jack Frost, who would ironically later die in an avalanche. I still think that's very ironic. So, yeah, this movie has some good performances. The lead actor, I think he gives an excellent performance, and the police investigation plot is intriguing. I had no idea what this movie was about. I didn't read the synopsis. I think that helped. It's got a very interesting story. It's like a zombie movie, but not really. It's kind of a zombie flick. I like the way the story unfolds. It feels like a Twilight Zone episode, and there's a few twists in the film, and some of them more predictable than others. I like the Stan Winston effects in the film. There's a guy who gets acid poured down his nose. Awesome. And there's lots of fog. It's a little too foggy, if you ask me. It's a little hard to see. Sometimes the lighting wasn't that great. It was just kind of dark. So yeah, I think maybe the excessive fog made it harder to see. And it's kind of slow at times. It's not the best paced film, but it was an interesting watch. I enjoyed it. So Dead and Buried is my number 9. Next up is Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. A young woman inherits an old hotel only to find it sits atop a gateway to hell, and all manner of creatures lurk in the darkness. I really like the black and brown. It's got a weird color palette to it. It's like a black and brown instead of black and white, and it's like a crucifixion in the opening. Very brutal kills, very just disgusting. There's spiders and tarantulas eating a guy apart, just taking his eyeballs out and his tongue. Gruesome stuff. So Lucio Fulci is known for that. There's even an eye gouge that's freaking disgusting. And the ending kind of turns into a zombie flick, and it's very silly. This guy has a 30-round revolver. He shoots 6 shots, has to reload, but then he shoots 20 plus more shots and then it runs out. It's that's ridiculous. This story is very confusing at times. It's kind of hard to follow. It depends on narration, just kind of trying to help you move along with the story. Oh, this is happening. Even at the very end, it's this is what's happening right now. The narration, the story was just not very interesting to me. It was not very coherent, but it was very atmospheric, and it has some very cool, macabre visuals in it. And the kills, you can't go wrong with Lucio Fulci's kills. So if you like gore, this is a film to check out. So there you go, Lucio Fulci's The Beyond at number 8. Number 7, we'll go to Madhouse. A woman is pursued by her murderous psychopathic twin sister and her bloodthirsty Rottweiler in the days leading up to their birthday. This movie is also called There Was a Little Girl. It has an alternate title, and the opening of this movie is kind of creepy. It just has these 2 little girls in a pitch black room, and this girl is getting her face bashed in, and it looks like a dummy. It's hilarious. I think you're supposed to think it's a real person. And yeah, this movie has child death. There's a Rottweiler sidekick with this slasher. This person just lets their dog eat people. There's a cat that gets hung, just swaying back and forth. This movie's evil. There's a guy who has a girlfriend that looks like Spock. like from Star Trek. It's got very quirky characters. I love one of the killers towards the end. Just that chase sequence, it goes on a little too long, but there's some very silly, funny moments in this movie. It does what Happy Birthday to Me does, the whole like birthday table scene, and this came out the same year, and I think maybe a few months before that movie, so that's kind of interesting that they both came out the same year and they have the same exact scene. And so the score was fine. It's a little too rambunctious at times, and it had elements of Slaughter High in the score. And yeah, just the bizarre third act is what saved this movie for me, and just some of the kills in it I thought were kind of mean spirited. The cat, a kid, the fact that there was a dog that was killing people for the slasher villain, I thought that was unique and different. And yeah, I just love the opening, love the ending. It's just balls to the wall nuts. It does try a little too hard to be crazy, but I think it works to the film's charm. And the motivation for this killer is a little unclear to me in the end, but I like it. There's also a hilarious line in the movie where the guy goes, "Why is everyone afraid of dying? It's not that bad." Next up, we have Linda Blair in Hell Night. Four college pledges are forced to spend the night in a deserted old mansion where they are stalked by the monstrous survivors of a family massacre years before. This is a Irwin Yablans production, and it has Mac Allberg doing the cinematography. He did a lot of Stuart Gordon films, if I'm not mistaken. And I like that this movie has two deformed killers instead of just one. Love the setting, love the atmosphere. A year ago when I saw this movie for the first time, I thought it was just boring. I just was not into it. I thought Linda Blair was terrible, and she's not that great in this film, if I'm being honest. Her acting is not the best, but she's fine. I like the other characters, though. Like, all these other three around her, I thought they were great. I liked especially the other two, like the surfer dude and the blonde chick. Just there's a lot of good dialogue between them. And I like some of the unexpected things that happen in the film where like the guy successfully leaves and then he actually comes back to try to save the day. I like that. And he like goes into a police station and like somehow is able to sneak a gun out of like their evidence section, which is just silly, but I love it. I love the location, love the atmosphere of it. And there's a couple of decent kills in here. You get like a neck twist and a beheading, but it cuts away very quickly. I thought this time it was decently paced and there were some suspenseful moments. The chase through like the hedge, the maze out in the backyard, I thought that scene was pretty cool. And there's even like a homage to Halloween where the killer's like in the background, like standing up. And it's like a subtle scare just happening in the background while the characters are in the foreground. I really like that scene. And there's no nudity in here, but doesn't really need it. Next up is Halloween 2. While Sheriff Brackett and Dr. Loomis hunt for Michael Myers, a traumatized Laurie Strode is rushed to the hospital and the serial killer is not far behind her. Things I love about this movie is it has amazing continuity. This is a great like back-to-back wash with the first one. It's got the same basically cast and crew behind it. Dean Cundy doing the cinematography work. It looks great. I like the atmosphere of the abandoned hospital. It's a little too empty if you ask me. But I like the updated version of the score. I used to not really like it that much, but I actually dig it now. In the opening with the pumpkin, it zooms in, there's like a skull behind it, and Dr. Loomis is even more like unhinged in this one. He's got some great one-liners, some good dialogue, and a fun character in Bud at the hospital. Amazing Grace comes sit on my face. The best tits in this franchise, if you ask me, from that one nurse, and some cool kills. The hammer to the back of the cop's head, and the needle in the eye and the temple. They do some callbacks to part one with some shots. And yeah, just I love Loomis. What I don't like about this movie is they insert the whole brother-sister angle. I don't like it. It's just not necessary. It feels very thrown in, very shoehorned for no reason. It's information that never gets back to Laurie in this film. Big mistake, and just not necessary. And I do not like the portrayal of Michael Myers in this film by Dick Warlock. He's way, way slower than he was in part one. Way slower. He's a freaking zombie in this one. And he seems way more supernatural. It was more questionable in the first one. Whereas in this one, it's like no doubt he's supernatural. He gets shot in the face with like a 44 Magnum twice. And he's just swiping away. Like that scene's very silly. I like the visual of the blood eyes. But the idea of him getting shot in the face and somehow surviving it is ridiculous. The whole scene is just ridiculous. I also just feel like they don't utilize Laurie Strode well at all in this movie. She's just not in it. She's not in nearly enough scenes. She's just in a bed and like passed out and then crawling around in the third act. Just no, I wasn't a fan of that, but I still very much enjoy the flick. And shout out to Max Parcerello and Charlie Rached, who said that this was their favorite from 1981. Number 4, we'll go to Toby Hooper's The Funhouse. Rebellious teen Amy defies her parents by going to a trashy carnival that has pulled into town with her friends. They decide to spend the night in the Campy Funhouse horror ride and witness a murder by a deformed worker wearing a mask. The biggest thing I love about this movie is the atmosphere. Once again, really like the atmosphere of this carnival and the set designs within the funhouse. I like the look of the killer. It looks a little fake, but still pretty unique. It's got it's Rick Baker's effects, and he's like got this jewel coming out of his mouth, a horrendously scary scream, and the final chase is a little underwhelming, but it's fine. The characters, I think, are the weakest part of this movie, and the kills aren't really that creative and they're not gory, but I just think the atmosphere of the film and the score, that's tremendous, really helps the film, in my opinion. I also just really love the opening that pays homage to not only Psycho, but Halloween. This is only a couple years after Halloween, and this is one of the only, slasher movies, if you want to call it one, that has the final girl being the only girl in the movie who shows her breasts not once, but twice. And shout out to Justin Smith, who chose this as his favorite. Number 3 will go to Friday the 13th Part 2. Mrs. Voorhees is dead and Camp Crystal Lake is shut down, but 5 years later, a counselor training camp next to the infamous place is stalked by an unknown assailant. We all know who that assailant is. His name is Jason. Alright, so I don't know why the plot synopsis said unknown assailant, but whatever. We all know who it is. So let's get the negative things I have to say about this movie out of the way. I am not crazy about this look or portrayal of Jason. I like Mrs. Voorhees better than this Jason. I think that she's more terrifying than this Jason, but that's just my opinion. Not a fan of the sackhead look. Not a fan of the portrayal, how clumsy he seems just falling around. I know it's realistic. That could happen, the chair break and whatnot, but it's not an intimidating Jason to me, and I just don't find him terrifying. But what I do like about this movie is the pacing is very fast. It's a very rewatchable movie. It's got the best final girl in the franchise with Amy Steele, who's gorgeous. A lot of beautiful women in this movie. Some nudity, some creative kills. Unfortunately, some of them are cut. There's like 40 seconds cut from this film, so that's a damn shame. It's got a cool opening where we kill off Alice from part 1, spoiler. And yeah, you got Pamela Voorhees coming back, and at the end, that whole third act is iconic. The whole putting on a sweater thing, Jason Mother's talking to you. I just really love this film. It's very nostalgic to me. I love that the music is expanded upon. You got the music back from part 1. This movie also carries over the look and feel of the first movie into this one. It's got like the same crew behind it, and I think this has some of the best characters in the franchise, some of the best acting, and tremendously suspenseful third act. That final chase is amazing. And shout out to Hayden Halls Apple and Jonathan Ash. If I'm saying your names wrong, sorry. Number 2 will go to My Bloody Valentine, a decades-old folk tale surrounding a deranged murderer killing those who celebrate Valentine's Day turns out to be true when a group of miners defy the killer's order and people start turning up dead. This is a Canadian slasher, and boy, does it feel Canadian. The actors are very Canadian. You can hear it in their voice. Some of the words that they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and they're drinking like Moosehead beer. There's a lot of Moosehead beer product placement in the film. And you got some actors from Meatballs, Black Christmas, and even The Funeral Home, which I did not like. And this movie actually takes place on a Friday the 13th weekend. I thought that was interesting. And I love the look of the killer in this movie, the miner outfit. The weapon of choice and the way they use it is pretty cool. The kills are very graphic, getting the pickaxe through the bottom of the chin out of his eyeball. Very memorable kills, and a great fun open kill and title card, very 80s. And I like the whole whodunit story. You don't know if it's the Harry Warden guy coming back from like the mental hospital. Is he dead? Is he still out there? And or if it's one of these two boyfriends there's like a love triangle going on. And boy, does this movie utilize the holiday theme. Like is the perfect movie to watch around the holiday of Valentine's Day. They have streamers everywhere around town. This movie really just goes for it. I mean, the town is called Valentine's Bluff. I love the gimmick of the killer, the fact that he like takes people's hearts out and he's like writing like cards that have like rhymes on them and stuff like that. And it has its own theme song at the very end during the credits. And there's even like breathing from the killer, like Michael Myers. This movie is very inspired by that. And the mind setting is great. It's very dark, cold, atmospheric, a great setting, cool final fight, final chase at the end, and very cheesy at times. It's very cheesy 80s fun. So, My Bloody Valentine, hardly anything negative to say about it. Yeah, I got nothing. Just almost a perfect slasher movie. Check it out. It is awesome. And shout out to Lindop, 1978. This was his favorite from 1981. Before we get to my number one, let's go over 5 quick honorable mentions. So this is basically my 11 through 15, so to speak. So, number 15, The Howling. This is by Joe Dante. It's got Dee Wallace and Dick Miller, rest in peace. This one's more leisurely paced, that's why I didn't make it in my top 10, and I'm not a werewolf fan, but I do love the werewolf transformation in the scene done by Rob Bottin, an excellent effects artist, and he was younger than me when he made this fucking movie. That's crazy. And there's a couple effects that don't age well, but that's whatever. And I didn't care for the storyline, really, the whole, like, amnesia. Like, she's got, like, this weird selective amnesia, like, she just can't remember the events that happened during, like, a 2-minute frame of time. Like she remembers everything before that. It's silly writing. And I love the score by Pino, I think that's how you say his name, Pino Donaggio. He does all kinds of scores. He did Dress to Kill and Tourist Trap. The music's good, got a lot of organ in it, and I love the foggy atmosphere of the film, and I also like that the werewolves walk on 2 legs and not all 4s like American Werewolf in London. This is my type of werewolf movie, the ones that walk on 2 legs, so really like that. And there's werewolf sex. Can't go wrong there. And the ending is a downer. Oh my gosh. That ending is very sad, it's shocking, and it's clever in a way. So I really like that ending. And number 14 will be Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, aka Night Warning. This movie says it was released in 82, but I also read that it was released in 81, so fuck it, I'm talking about it. This movie has Mr. Sims from Silent Night, Deadly Night, and it also has Bill Paxton. Very small role, though. And I think he should have played the main character, if I'm being honest. And this movie has a brutal car wreck in the opening, very Final Destination 2, and Macabre from 1980. And I love the aunt character in this movie, the actress who plays her. She kind of gives a Betsy Palmer performance in the third act where she kind of gets a little hammy, a little over the top, but I love it. She gives a crazy good performance, and she's the best character in the movie. She's batshit nuts. She's the crazy aunt who just wants her nephew to live with her forever, and there's a lot of homophobia in the movie. There's lots of F-bombs being dropped, and it's also got some other actors in here. So yeah, it's got some social commentary in it, and there's also a twist reveal that I didn't expect, and I think this is a really well-directed story. I just thought it paced very well, and it doesn't really get enough attention. There's like not even a Blu-ray anymore. It's like out of print. Doesn't get talked about enough. So if you haven't seen this movie, check it out. It's on YouTube right now. Somebody uploaded it, so check it out for free. Next up is Eyes of a Stranger by Ken Wiederhorn, the guy who directed Return of the Living Dead Part 2. This has Jennifer Jason Leigh, and it was written by Ron Kurz, who wrote Friday the 13th Part 2. And this has Tom Savini effects, although you're not going to see any gore in this film, so don't get too excited there. This has Black Christmas type phone calls throughout that I really liked. They were kind of creepy, but the dialogue was kind of generic and silly. It wasn't as creepy as Black Christmas, but I like what they were going for. And there's a decapitation scene that was kind of cool. The head is like in the fish tank. There's some brutal, kills. Just people getting butchered for no reason. Like a guy like trying to help this killer like fix his car and he just stabs him. And so yeah, just very mean-spirited. I thought the antagonist in this movie was perfectly cast. He is creepy as hell, and I love that the protagonist in this movie buys a gun like right away. Smart. You don't see that enough. I really enjoyed the story overall. I like this main character, and it gets very intense. And again, a movie that I don't hear a lot of people talk about in the horror community. So, Eyes of a Stranger is a damn good slasher. It just doesn't have the gore, so don't expect that. But I like the story, and I like the way it unfolds, and very intense. So check out Eyes of a Stranger. Next up is The Omen 3, The Final Conflict. Although this was not the final movie, they made part 4 in like 1990, and that movie seems awful. Haven't seen it though. This has a very elaborate suicide in the opening. Doesn't compete with the hanging in part 1, but this guy like blows his own brains out in an elaborate way. There's some cool kills in here. There was a montage of infant babies getting murdered in different ways. And there's these guys like trying to hunt down Damien, and they like die in weird accidents too. And it's pretty funny, very dark at times too. The ending's very lackluster. I think the third act is what most people don't like about the movie, how it all ties up at the end. But I do like that evil finally loses in this movie. And, the first two did the same thing. Evil wins, and in this one it's like, no, evil loses. So maybe that's what people don't like about it, but I like that. But yeah, the ending is still kind of weak, but I really enjoyed it because it has a very eerie, awesome score by Jerry Goldsmith, really good performances. Sam Neill is amazing as Damien, and he likes it really rough with the ladies. He is a monster in bed. I mean, if you've seen that scene, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's also very intense at times, so check out The Omen 3, The Final Conflict. Last but not least, I kept this out of my top 10 because it's not horror enough for me. It's more of a thriller, road movie, and that is Road Games. This is a thriller mystery. This is by the director of Psycho 2, I believe, and this movie feels very Hitchcockian at times. The way it's shot and everything. There's even like a Hitchcock magazine at one point. And you got Stacy Keach and Jamie Lee Curtis in here. And I love Stacy Keach. He's the star of this movie. He is amazing. I love his character Quid, the dialogue. He's just funny as fuck. Really enjoy him. He's sophisticated and hilarious. And there's some conveniences in the movie, like coincidences that you just kind of have to look past. But yeah, it's a very intriguing story. I was 100% engaged from beginning to end. Very interested to see where this was gonna lead. And unfortunately, there's not really a twist in the movie. I thought there was gonna be a cool twist or something, but there wasn't. Very cut and dry. And because of that, it's not really all that rewatchable, but it was a damn good one-time viewing. I just don't think this is a highly rewatchable movie. But number one, my favorite movie, a movie that I've only seen a few times, but damn did I really appreciate the hell out of it the last time I watched it very recently, and that is Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. 5 friends travel to a cabin in the woods where they unknowingly release flesh-possessing demons and must fight for their lives or become one of the evil dead. This movie has Bruce Campbell, of course, as Ash, and this is before he becomes like Ash in part 2 and 3 with the chainsaw hand. This is the origins of Ash, so he's not as entertaining in this movie. This one's a lot more serious. There's some little elements of comedy. I don't think that's what they were going for, but there's just some things that happen that you kind of laugh at because of just how crazy it is. This movie is very ambitious, very low budget, but damn do they use their budget well. This is like a movie that was made by kids in college. Like they just drove from Michigan to Tennessee, I think. I didn't watch any documentary. I haven't really looked into it that much, but I've heard about the film, like the behind the scenes, and like these are college kids making a movie from what I've heard. But it's damn impressive. This is an impressive movie. You gotta respect the hell out of it for such, a low budget it was and what we got from it. Like the effects, although they don't really age that well, some of them are still very great for, like I said, the budget. It's got a perfect spooky atmosphere to it. The cabin in the woods setting, the camera work in the film. There's some cool like demon POV shots going through the woods, all the fog. I just really enjoyed this movie this time. If I had to nitpick anything, it would just be a small little quibble, and it's that it got kind of annoying that chick's laughter at the end. When she's possessed, the way she's laughed, they overuse her laugh. Like she's just constantly laughing in the background, and that got on my nerves a little bit. But still a very entertaining, highly rewatchable movie. It is batshit insane with great, effects at the time. It's low budget. It kind of looks low budget, but very ambitious, very impressive. and a damn good movie. Evil Dead is my number one. And shout out to Just Peter, who chose this as his number one, and it's my number one as well. So we have the same opinion. Evil Dead is awesome. So that is my top 10 of 1981. What is your top 10 movies of 1981? Horror movies. Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And until next time, Auf Wiedersehen.